What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Real Talk Podcast, where real people talk about the real. And today is episode 18, man. And I'm very energized today to talk about this topic that we're going to be speaking on. And that topic is going to be: you are what you think you are, and you are who you think you can become. You are what you think. You are who you compare yourself to. All those different things, and that all plays a role with the law of attraction. And I do want to say, my last episode, it wasn't my best, and I feel like one thing I find myself doing is speaking very fast on my podcast, feeling very fast paced, so I'm going to slow down and, I'm going to prioritize the quality over the quantity, because at the end of the day, I just do this for y'all. I do this for all the people that want to watch, and I do this for all the people that want to hear this. And I'd rather y'all get the best quality I can provide y'all, and me do the best content that I like to produce and that I love producing for y'all to hear, and talk about topics that I love for y'all to hear. And everything I've done, I've loved to talk about. I've loved to have been able to speak on it and to be able to express my feelings towards that topic, or what I went through with that topic, or whatever the case may be, but I just know personally that I could produce better content, and if I was a little bit less fast-paced, that I could do that. And I want to prioritize quality over quantity at the end of the day when it comes to my podcast, because I take pride in my channel. I don't do this for money. I do this for y'all, the people that want to hear this, and I do this for my future self. And to get things started, I feel like I was rushing, just posting whatever, just trying to post videos that had lots of cuts, things like that. So I think one thing I want to do is slow down, be more clear when I'm speaking on what I'm speaking on, and just post more, like I said, quality content over quantity. So today's topic is, like I said, we're going to be talking about you are what you attract, you are what you think you are, all those things, the law of attraction as a whole, basically. But I want the main thing for y'all to take away from this is you are what you think you are, and you are who you compare yourself to, And we're going to jump in backwards. We're going to do this backwards today. So we're going to go first with the thing that I want to touch on first is going to be: you are who you compare yourself to. I feel like that's major, but I feel like it's not as big as a problem as people think, because it's easy to just stop comparing yourself to people. It's easier than you think, just stop thinking about how other people's lives are. Stop worrying about how other people's lives are, and you could, stop comparing yourself to people. Stop thinking about how other people look. Stop worrying about how other people look. Stop worrying so much about what yourself looks like and what you're also doing and what your situation might be, or what your traumas might be. That's all comparison. And I feel like a lot of people do that. A lot of people struggle with that. I personally did. Like I said, all these topics I talk about are things I struggle with, things I want people to hear, and there are things that I could speak on and give y'all my perspective on, because I went through those. And I feel like I always compared myself to people. I still do at times. It's not in a way that's like, oh, that person looks better than me, but let's say, for example, whatever the case may be, whatever the situation might be, I might be like, oh, damn, that guy could take my female, or whatever, And I feel like that's comparison in a way. Or, I compare myself to my future self. But I feel like me comparing myself to my future self is a positive thing. I feel like that's something that I do to motivate myself, and for me to understand where I'm going to go and where I'm going to be, and for me to get to where I'm at mentally. It took me comparing myself to my future self, if that makes sense. And I think if you're going to compare yourself to anything, compare yourself to what you can become. And I think if you do that, you could take that negative connotation and make it a positive connotation. Like I said, one thing that I love to talk about is how these negative connotations that we are taught, these negative connotations that exist in the world, we can turn them into positive connotations. And that's one of them. And the next thing I want to touch on is you are what you think you are. And this all, like I said, just has to do with the law of attraction as a whole. But you are what you think you are. You are what you think you can become. You are what you think you're capable of. Because at the end of the day, if you're not willing to think past those temporary standards, if you're not willing to think past those temporary boundaries or those temporary blockades that may be blocking you from your goal, whatever the case may be, then you never will be able to accomplish it. If you think you could only do so much, that's all you're ever going to do. But if you think you could go past that, if you know you could go past that instead of just thinking, then you will become so much more. And at the end of the day, you got to change that thinking into knowing. You got to know you can be great. You got to know you could accomplish so much more. For example, today I had a bad day at work, but guess what? I simply just pimp past it and I just move on because I know what I'm going to become. I know that my boss has a power trip and that she was, very irritated at that situation and that she felt like she could talk to me some type of way and disrespect me as a person. And I didn't take that very lightly, so I simply just, instead of having a reaction or wanting to quit my job, obviously I had those thoughts, but I don't act on those thoughts because those are thoughts that aren't going to help me in any way, shape, or form, and just are going to prove to other people and is going to prove to myself that I am weak-minded. At the end of the day, I know I'm stronger than that. I know I'm better than that. So I simply, like I said, we just pimp past it, man. Pimp past it. That's all you could do. You just gotta pimp past it. You gotta understand you're going to become your own boss. So your boss might have a power trip right now, but just don't be like that when you are your own boss, when you have people employed under you. And that's all I was telling myself, oh, it's cool, she could act how she wants to act, per usual. She can act how she wants to act. I already said that, my bad, y'all. She could act how she wants to act. She could do what she wants to do because she's the boss at the end of the day, right? She's my boss, right? So, I could go to the company and complain and do all this extra stuff, but at the end of the day, I don't really care because I know I'm going to be better than that. So I don't let that phase me now. I don't get hung up on that now. And it's just an example I'm using, Obviously that happened today, so it's still in the back of my mind, but it's not in the back of my mind as I'm thinking about her, giving her that power. I'm simply just using it as motivation, man. It's motivation for me to come out here and get this done. It's motivation for me to have walked these 5 miles to get down here to this lake that I've never been to before. So, I was lost. That's only why I was 5 miles. But, it doesn't hurt to get out and to walk. It doesn't hurt to get out and read. I was reading this book. Right now I'm reading 2 books, The 4 Agreements and Going Beyond Your Thoughts. I think that's what the second one is called. Let me grab my bag and show y'all, right? The 4 Agreements. If y'all know game, that book is just straight game. Yeah, don't believe everything you think. This is the other book, you might have seen it on TikTok. But this is the 4 Agreements, I do have a pretty decent book collection. I think I might go over it if it's something y'all are interested in. I could go over books that I've read. I finished Success 101 recently. That's a book I'm going to do a next pod on, but I like to save getting in the book bag for longer extended pods when I don't feel as rushed and not as busy. And like I said, we're just prioritizing quality over quantity, so therefore, we're going to read more books, extend our personal book bag, and then that's when we're going to jump in on the book bag on here and going to explain to y'all books. And when I know I could explain those books a little bit better and break them down in an easier way for people to understand, for people to digest, then that's when I will do that. So Success 101, yes, I finished it, but I haven't gone back, and I do, y'all know, I showed y'all in past podcasts. If you don't know and you're new here, appreciate you watching. But I fold, you can't really see it from there, but I fold parts that I really enjoy and that I know have good game in there. And I take those folded parts and I'll go back and highlight them. And I haven't done that with Success 101. But my favorite book I've read so far is The Way of the Superior Man. I've gone over that on a podcast. It was one of my very first episodes, and Think and Grow Rich. Those are 2 books that I've read. And now Success 101. I've read a good amount of the Bible, actually, and I listen to the Bible, but that doesn't count as reading, in my opinion. It does count as hearing the Word of God and all of those things, and I think that's huge, But I think reading the Bible, hits different for me personally. Just my personal take. I do like listening to it, though. But yeah, this is what we're reading right now, man. Don't believe everything you think, and the 4 Agreements. The 4 Agreements is compact with game, and I'm barely into it. Let's see what page I'm on. I'm on page 12, and on this one, I just finished the first chapter, so I'm on page 10 or something. Small books are what I like to read. The big books are a little harder for me to read because it's harder to keep me hooked. That's why I say my favorite book is The Way of the Superior Man out of my personal collection, and that's why that's my favorite book that I would recommend any people. People might hear The Way of the Superior Man and be like, "Oh, it's for men only. It's masculine or whatever." But at the end of the day, that's got game for both female and male. And if you really not game goofy, you're gonna understand that you could take female's game and turn it into male game, and you could turn male game into female game. And what I mean by that, let's say for example, you might be friends with a girl. She's telling you how girls see men. You could take that and you could take that game as knowledge, and you could gain knowledge from that, and you could go farther than that. And you could further your game based off of what a female's letting you know. And roles reversed. But yeah, that's what we're reading right now, man. That's getting off topic, but I just wanted to let y'all know, we are extending that book bag. We are going to get deeper in the book bag real soon. I'm trying to turn that book bag into a duffel bag, and then from a from that book bag, because we just got this regular bag, right? And then we're going to extend that to a backpack, and then to a duffel bag, then to a suitcase, then to just infinite game that I'm going to have for y'all. And right now we just extending our knowledge. This part of this personal growth journey for me personally. And I know my fit out here is crazy, but it is what it is, man. We got it done. I'm in my slippers getting these walks done, and we getting this content done. That's all that matters to me. And it's some quality content, like I said. I hope y'all do like the angle. I hope y'all can hear me very well. We're gonna be upgrading soon, but we gotta make do with what we have, because we know what we're capable of. We know where we're going, and that's what I mean, y'all. Y'all got to be able to understand that you are what you think you are. You got to be able to understand that you give the power to the people that you think about constantly. You give the power to the people that you compare yourself to. Stop doing that. Once you stop doing that, you're going to be able to become great. Once you stop doing that, you're going to be able to accomplish so much more. And I realize that, I'm a very big overthinker. It's not something that I've talked about on my podcast yet, I think. And my overthinking is especially bad when it comes to females. And, that's just trauma. But at the end of the day, I give the power to my parents by trying to blame it on them. So I just say it's because of trauma. But I understand that that's not why I overthink. I understand that they played a role in why my overthinking is so bad. And you got to understand, you got to accept certain things that you are still working on when you're on this self-growth journey. I've gained a lot of knowledge on my self-growth journey. I've been able to obtain a lot of game, and I'm not game goofy, never was. But I do catch myself, playing game goofy because I be wanting to earn something on the back end, or I catch myself, over validating people, or sacrificing my own thoughts for other people. And that's why I picked up this book that is literally says, what's it say, y'all? Don't believe everything you think. This isn't a book that I just think caught my eye and I just grabbed it. It's a book that I've been plotting on for a minute, and I knew there would be a moment where I wanted to grab it, and I grabbed it, a while back, but I recently got into it. And it is written by the same person that wrote Beyond Thoughts, another really good book, but that's more of like a daily reminder is how I like to say that book is. So this right here, this literally says why you're thinking is the beginning and end of your suffering. And that's huge. I think thinking who you can be is very big, but also could cause suffering in a way. Because at the end of the day, I found myself very disappointed in where I'm at and what I'm doing. And like I said, I've been disappointed with the content I've been dropping. I've been disappointed with speaking too quickly, not getting my words across. Excuse me. I just did it right there. And that's what I mean. We just got to take our time with this. We got to understand that this is quality content over quantity content, and that I do truly care about my YouTube. I do truly care about the game that I give people, and I want to provide information. I even brought a water jug out here, and I'm about to take a sip right now, so I hope y'all excuse me. But at the end of the day, I understand that I be rushing myself because I found myself running out of breath, so I rushed myself to finish the topic I'm talking about, and I'll do that, and then I'll just end the pod. And that's just not quality content, and that I'm not content with that. I'm not content with that, and the reason I'm not content with that is because I know what my podcast will become. I know the amount of people I'll be able to reach at a certain point, and I want people to go back and look like he's always been like this. He's always cared, and like I said, that's just part of me growing, and that's part of me understanding my future self, and that's part of me being where my future self is at mentally. And it took me admitting that. I give the power to the people that I think about. I give the power to the people that traumatize me by blaming that trauma on them. When at the end of the day, my overthinking is nobody else's fault but mine, because it is my weakness. But it's a weakness that I'm personally not too fond of, but it's a weakness that I also have accepted because it's a weakness that has been harder for me to change. Everything else I've been able to change. The gym habits, bad habits, I've been able to cut those off. Bad eating habits, bad going out habits, bad spending habits, those are all things I've been able to cut off, and those are all things I'm still currently work on, because you always sharpening them tools. You should always be sharpening that sword, but that's what I meant, not sharpening those tools. That's my bad, y'all. You always should be sharpening that sword. That's huge, man. That's huge. And I just personally think that people nowadays, they compare themselves to the internet way too often when the internet is fake. I could be AI generated right now. I'm not, but I'm just saying I could be, and y'all wouldn't know. Or I could act like I have my life put together and all that, and I don't. Just because my mental's there doesn't mean that I should act like that, right? And that's what I've come to understand. Just because I'm there mentally doesn't mean that I should act like I have the materialistic things. I shouldn't be that delusional, but you gotta be delusional enough to want it. You gotta be delusional enough to get there mentally. In a way, it is delusion, me thinking and knowing how I'm going to be in the future. But that's just me simply envisioning what I know I can become. And what I know I will become. And like I said, you got to take that comparison, you got to take that thinking and turning it into knowing. And once you turn it into knowing, that's when you will become great. And that's what I did. I've turned my thinking of what I can become into knowing what I can become, into understanding what I am now and what I was in the past and what I'm going to become in the future. And I think that's huge, especially when getting to know people and wanting to understand people. You got to understand their past self, present self, and future self. And I think that's very huge when you have friendships, relationships, and family ships. So this is something that I always talk about, friendships, family ships, and relationships. And that's one thing I like to do, at least, and I feel like everyone should do. I feel like the world would be a better place, and people would be in a better mental state if everyone just took the time to get to know people on a deeper level, get to understand people on a deeper level. But it's understandable that not everyone's like that, and I feel like growing and getting to understand myself took a lot of time, took a lot of sharpening that sword, and it was very dull at one point. It didn't even have a hilt on it, and it took a lot of time, a lot of power, and a lot of consistency, and a lot of thought, and a lot of knowing to understand what I can do and what I can become. And for me to understand the law of attraction, for me to understand the people I give the power to, all those different things. And that's something that I think everybody needs to hear. I think everyone needs to just understand that you could be so great. You can accomplish so much if you just locked in, and if you just stop comparing yourself to people, if you just stop thinking you could do this and just do it, and you just know you could do it. You just gotta want it. You just gotta understand that is what your goal is. That is what your purpose is. You gotta be purpose driven, man. You can't be purpose driven if you second guessing yourself. You can't be purpose driven if you just thinking about it, not doing it. And that's huge. And that's something that I have found myself lacking recently. That's why I wanted to talk about this today, especially after that altercation at work. I felt like that was just motivation. That just woke up the game inside of me to come out here and produce this podcast, and to come out here and remind myself that we need to do quality over quantity. We need to understand that we need to speak slower. We need to understand that we could get our point across without speaking super fast. All those different things. But I feel like that's huge, man. I feel like everyone just needs to come to the understanding that you could do so much more if you just stop giving the power to those people that don't even know you. And even if they do know you, they don't really know you. You only understand yourself. No one will really understand you how you understand yourself. They will only understand you so much, but it will never be to a point where they fully understand you. And I think that's huge, man. I feel like no one understands that nowadays. They think they're just going to find someone that's going to truly understand them. And me personally, I understand that not everyone's going to understand me, because I don't understand almost anybody. Literally, I don't get how people think the way they think. I don't get how people act the way they act. And it really does bother me, because it's like, it just doesn't make sense in my mind. My brain just doesn't process it because it's just not there. But I think it's just because I'm just mentally ahead of people. I'm just matured enough to where I understand that I'm not for everyone, and everyone's not for me. And not everyone's game oriented. Everyone's game goofy nowadays, and that's the real talk. That's the Real Talk podcast, where real people talk about the real, and we talking about that. People are game goofy nowadays, man, and they think they know game, but they don't really know game, because they haven't really experienced a lot of things. They haven't taken the time to get to understand themselves on a deeper level. They haven't taken the time to get to understand their peers or their family or their partner. So they just settle for what they have. They settle for what they think they can do and what they are capable of, or what they think they deserve. But at the end of the day, you got to know what you deserve. You got to know what you can have. You got to know what you're capable of. And that's just huge, man. That's just all part of the law of attraction, like I said. I think this is something that all y'all need to be reminded. Whoever you are watching, you click this video for a reason. And I do appreciate everyone watching, man. Let me know what y'all think about this pace. Let me know what y'all think about this this episode, and let me know what y'all think about that book bag, man. Let me know if y'all want some book bag episodes. Excuse me, if y'all want some book bag episodes where I go over books I've already read, or I go through reading a book with y'all. We might read a chapter, and I might share my opinion on that chapter. And let me tell y'all, man, I'm not at the point where I just think of things. I just do them, and I just know that I'm going to do them. And at the end of the day, I have so many great things planned for y'all. I have so many great things planned for my brand, but I haven't acted on them. But I know I'm going to get them done. It's just a matter of when. But there is no when. Just do it right now. And that's what I've come to realize. Like, just lock in and do it. And today really just like reminded me, like, you're not a boss yet, bruh. Like, you might be there mentally, but you still is not there materialistically, and you're still not there in your daily life because you're still going to that 9 to 5, exchanging your time for money, and you're exchanging your time, which is precious, on a daily basis. And it's not even a good time either. You exchanging it for a bad time where you don't enjoy yourself, when you're in bad mood, and where you don't want to speak to people. And that's really what it is at the end of the day. At work, I don't talk to nobody. Even outside of work, I don't talk to nobody. And it's just because people aren't there mentally. If people aren't there where I want to be. And it's not me knocking anyone around me, be that way. That's fine. But me personally, I'm just striving for better. And I know that I'm going to be great. And I know that I'm going to be able to accomplish so much. And I know that I'm going to get it done. And I know that it's going to happen because I have God on my side and I have myself. And that's all you need on this journey, And you are what you attract. That's all part of the law of attraction. And once you really locked in doing your thing, you're going to attract people that are doing the same. And they might come off that way at first. And if they're not, you will know, because you won't be game goofy. But if you game goofy, you might get screwed over by a lot of people. And just don't do that. And that's why I wanted to come out here and talk about this thing with y'all, man. And get over this topic and hop straight into that. And let y'all understand that you could be so great. And that's what I mean by hopping straight into that. I just wanted to hop into it and just go straight into it and just start off with game. I did take a little break, explain to y'all the book bag and what we've been doing recently and how I want to prioritize quality over quantity. But that's all part of the pod, man. That's all part of the pod. And I hope y'all enjoyed. And yeah, I've just been really sharpening my sword. I've just been thinking, and I don't mean thinking of what I can become or any of those things that I just spoke on. I just mean thinking, just like thinking constantly. My brain just always thinking, and it's all in great ways because it's always thinking of new ideas, new things that I know I'm going to do, and new things that I know I can do. And that's what I mean. You just gotta think. But if you're gonna think of things that you know you can do. Change that from just thinking you could do it and just knowing you could do it. Have those thoughts, but it's a thought that also says, I know I can accomplish blank. I know I can become blank. I know I will be blank. And that's when people be saying, a lot of successful people say you got to be delusional. And I'm not delusional because at the end of the day, I know it's going to happen. I know it's bound to happen. I know it's the purpose that God has given me. And I trust in God, man. I trust in his process. And yeah, that's huge. So let me know what y'all think about this pod episode. Like I said, this is episode 18 where real people talk about the real. And let me know if y'all want this book bag real soon. And yeah, I hope y'all enjoyed, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace out, y'all.